Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Extra Serving, a Nation's Restaurant News podcast. I am your host, Holly Petrie. This week on the pod, we're going to be talking about marketing moves, either aimed at Gen Z or customers looking for a deal. First, Chipotle introduced a new student loan retirement match plan and financial planning help for new applicants, specifically aimed at Gen Z. This comes around the time of year that Chipotle is hiring more workers for its busy season, March to May. Chipotle announced it's looking to hire 19,000 workers this year, an increase from the years prior. More than 73% of workers at Chipotle are Gen Z, and these benefits are aimed at the generation with the highest student loan debt and increasingly high credit card debt. In other news, Applebee's made another loud move in the marketing space, this time with something called a date night pass. For $200, cardholders can get 52 date nights starting February 1st through January 31st, 2025, with up to $30 on food and non-alcoholic beverages per use via dine-in or to-go. That would typically equate to more than $1,500 in value. The card sold out within 1 minute. Now, some customers are calling for a boycott of Applebee's and posting about the card being a scam. Is this good buzz for the brand or bad buzz? And is this showing the popularity of Applebee's? Which brings us to the star of this episode, America's favorite chains. Earlier this week, we released the latest collaboration between NRN and Technomic, which ranks America's favorite chains based on consumers. From Gen Z to millennials, the list covers cuisines and ages. Some brands may surprise you, and some may not, but we're here to dive deeper into that list. This week's guest is Bonchan's new CEO, Susie Tsai. And now it's time to introduce my single co-host today for a little bit.
Yes, I am Alicia Kelso, Executive Editor of Nation's Restaurant News. This is fun.
Sam will join us later, but we're just having a nice chat right now.
Yeah, let's talk some smack about him before he joins. Hurry
we
up.
always do when he's not on the pod. It's so much fun.
I am aware.
Well, he never listens.
Oh, that's his problem. But I'm kind of bummed because I wore the sweatshirt intentionally. I've not been on this podcast since Michigan won the national championship in football. And so I wanted to gloat a little bit, but I'll save it.
Well, so Alicia, you are a Michigan fan when it comes to college sports. Do you accept the whole state for their sports, or is it just college?
If you're asking if I'm cheering for the Detroit Lions, yes, of course I am. I am cheering for my affinity is with college. I've got a cat named Harbaugh, so I'm a little sad about Coach Harbaugh going to the Los Angeles Chargers, but I will be cheering for the Detroit Lions. It's been a great year for the state of Michigan for football, so I'll take it. It's been a long time.
I know. I was at a bar when the playoff game was, or whatever it's called. I really don't know. And some people there were cheering, and I was like, well, what's happening? And they were like, well, the Detroit Lions have never been to a Super Bowl. And the other team, I don't know who they were. I think they were Tom Brady's old team. And I was like, oh, I would like the Detroit Lions to win.
You missed a little bit on that, but that's okay. It's been 30 years since I feel like that woman in Titanic, that old woman who sits down and it's been 5 years. That's what I feel like now as both a Michigan Wolverines and a Detroit Lions fan. And I'll talk about it forever and ever. And last weekend I had a couple glasses of wine and bought all this, all these victors national championship things, and they showed up. I was like, yeah, well, that's cool. Good idea. Tipsy Alicia. So it's fun, and I'm going to take advantage of it until next fall.
Well, this kind of brings me to what I wanted to talk about most this week, which is the Applebee's date night pass.
Sure.
Because I think it's really exciting. Okay, so in preparation for the story, I wrote down, or I copied from your story, Alicia, the lyrics to the song.
I am no country music fan. I actually had to Google that.
I took it from your story because I don't even know the tune. But it's the song Fancy Like from Walker Hayes. And the lyrics are, yeah, we fancy like Applebee's on a date night. Got that Bourbon Street steak with the Oreo shake. Get some whipped cream on the top two straws, one check. Girl, I got you. So this started Applebee's latest marketing campaign. I'm sure everybody listening to it is like, what the hell did she just say? But no, nothing like reading song lyrics out loud. So this started Applebee's huge marketing campaign I mean, they won awards for this campaign. It was completely viral in the best way, not in the COVID way. But like it was huge. And so this carried through for a while. We talked with the marketing, the CMO. Sam actually spoke to him recently on an episode of Takeaway, so go check that out. He talks about how they developed this partnership for Fancy Like. Very interesting. But so this date night pass is a new thing they introduced. And Alicia, you wrote all about it. Thank you to our wonderful reporting by you. And so it's for $200. You get all these benefits. I mean, it's
No,
pretty crazy.
it's
And it's
over
a
a
pretty little gold
1,500.
card.
Yeah, it's over a $1,500 value. I think that's the sort of the hook here is you can get this card for one date night a week for 52 weeks. And the impetus behind this launch was, Applebee's is a huge value player. They don't shy away from this. They lean into it. And they wear it on their sleeve. They've got dollaritas, for God's sake, and all you can eat riblets and shrimp and all that stuff. And so they very much embrace their position as a value player in the casual dining space. This, I would think, now this is purely speculative on my part, but I think this would generate a little bit more frequency to Applebee's than perhaps many of its casual dining peers. We talk about this all the time. Casual dining is not a frequent diner play all that often, especially in the context when we're talking about Dutch Bros and McDonald's and so on and so on and so forth. So, I think this campaign was really, really interesting in that it kind of proved people are willing to use Applebee's frequently, selling out in less than a minute. It pissed a lot of people off. I had email. I mean, I was, perusing social media. I was looking at Reddit and TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff. And of course, there's threats for boycotts and, and I had several emails. I had about 4 emails directly to me because we include our email address at the bottom of each story. And we actually get these emails quite often where people, I think we're the brand to make these decisions. But people, were emailing me like, is this a scam? Because I think it's a scam. And I look, I don't think this was a scam. I do think that maybe it sold out quicker than Applebee's was anticipating, but I don't think, these types of promotions that build this huge exclusivity angle and all of this huge buzz, and I'm thinking of everything from, McDonald's adult Happy Meals to KFC fire logs. All of this stuff sells out always, and it always sells out suspiciously in a really swift amount of time. Suspiciously. I mean, the restaurant marketers, I would argue, because of the complexity, and the sheer usage and excitement of this industry, I think restaurant marketers are the most savvy of any industry. They know what they're doing. Joel Yashinsky knows what he's doing at Applebee's, and again, but you have to wonder. You asked the question, Holly, is the risk worth it? You're getting threats of boycott and angry comments and so on and so forth. That's yet to be seen. I don't think it's going to have a material impact on. I think people will still go to Applebee's. They have dollaritas, for God's sake. One thing I do kind of want to piggyback off of with that is Applebee's doesn't have a strong loyalty program like its sister brand IHOP does. IHOP launched its loyalty program about 2-ish years ago, and it's had tremendous success, about 6 million active members. And IHOP has done a lot of work around that loyalty program. It's going to continue to do so. I can imagine that Applebee's, this campaign may have been a play to sort of feel some things out, because when they sold out of that card, on the website, it said, hey, go to our club, and instead we don't have this date night pass available anymore, but we've got this, this club. So I think there could have been some feeling out of things there. And again, I think that, given that Applebee's tends to be a higher frequent casual dining chain versus many of its peers, loyalty could work there. And IHOP, its sister brand at Dine Brands, is very much proving that. So I'm speculating that there could be some deeper things here. Again, their savvy marketing team, they've leveraged this fancy like thing before with some lip gloss. That's why I was looking behind me. I've got the lip gloss. The box sings when you open it. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I think that there's more at play. And I see that we have a new guest or participant or whatever. And I don't want to ignore the elephant in the room.
Someone missed me speaking the lyrics to Fancy Like to Alicia.
This is what happens when I show up late to a podcast recording. Hey, my apologies, everybody, but I've got great news, which is that I have a working dryer again. So that's all that really matters.
What were you doing in the interim? Were you just like hanging all your clothes outside like a?
It was like Little House on the Prairie over here is what was happening. We had clothes on every surface of the house. And for those who have kids, they know well, you don't just do one load of laundry per week like I did when I was in my 20s. You do like 18. So I haven't had a dining room in a month. Anyway, that's a story for another day. How you guys doing? What are we talking about? We talking about restaurants or what?
We're talking about your dryer.
So we're talking about Applebee's date night path, which, Alicia, you made all these great points, but I think the best part about it is this little gold card that you get. Very pretty card. And it's like
nobody's getting it. Nobody's getting that card.
Wait, nobody has gotten it? Like it hasn't happened?
People have gotten it, but it's that's in a minute. So.
All 5 that they made, that's why they ran out in a minute, because they only made 5 of them. Well, and Alicia may have made this point, but the one thing I will contribute to this story is that there's no such thing as bad news, because it's like, and we've had this conversation about other things in the industry on this podcast before, which is like, if we're talking about it, then it's a success because it's got everybody talking. I mean, my inclination is to say that Joel Yashinsky, the CMO, and his team have had another home run. Although, as Alicia has pointed out, people are boycotting, but like, I don't know. I think a boycott that makes the news is just as strong as something good that made the news because, again, everybody talks about it. So, I talked to Joel a couple weeks ago on my podcast. Alicia, I know you talked to him a lot. Just a really great, smart guy. And he had said when he was on my podcast, he has this 90-10 rule where, 90% of what you do should be in your wheelhouse and 10% should be a stretch. It looks like this is part of their 10%, and they're going to learn a lot from it. And, I'm sure they're collecting a ton of data on this, and they'll iterate again on it, and it will be probably very successful. So all around, it seems like a win in my book.
It's like we all share a brain at this point because, Sam, in my intro, I said, is this good buzz or bad buzz? And then I also mentioned your takeaway interview, and you covered a lot of the same points Alicia did. So we're just like a hive mind at this point.
So I can just sign off and go enjoy my dryer. I just am going to go do a load of laundry real quick.
I was going to say, is that enjoyable?
I do want to. I want to point out that Sam mentioned that Joel Yashinsky is very smart. And that is because he went to Bowling Green State University.
That's right. I know where this is going. Well, I accept him as a fellow Mac alum,
That's right.
That's right.
We already talked about Michigan, so let's talk about Mac.
I'm glad you saved that for while I was not on.
Yes.
Well, I had to know if she was a fan of the Detroit Lions, which I'm now newly a fan.
We are all fans of the Detroit Lions this week, I'll tell you that, because otherwise I have nothing to cheer for in the NFL playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. The 49ers. Come on, Holly. Of course I expect you to know that.
San Francisco?
Yeah, well done. Very good.
Good job.
I was watching the game at a bar, and I was like, I don't know what's going on or who's playing. I couldn't read anything, so there was just like a little red blob, and I was like, oh, so they're playing the red team. Red team. Then people at the bar were explaining it to me, and then I was like, oh, I will be a Lions fan now.
Good. Okay. Yep. Welcome to the club. There's nothing to hate about the Lions. It's just a good story. So anyway, this is not a sports podcast. This is a restaurant podcast. What are we doing?
We'd be better than what's his name on Pat McAfee.
Anyway,
we're not going to spread conspiracies and stuff, so that's good. That's
Oh my god. Okay, so let's talk about Chipotle. I have to say, when Alicia told me about this story on First Bite, after we stopped recording, I did say should I apply for a job at Chipotle? So
You're not Gen Z though, Holly.
I know, but I got a lot of student loan debt, and that's really where this is aimed.
Well, I guess they don't have an age limit on this thing, do they?
No, and I'm borderline, so I think I could squeeze in.
I feel like I should tell the audience that we pay you better than Chipotle. I just feel like that should be known. But anyway.
But you're not offering me student loan relief, Sam, and that would be
true.
really key. So maybe you should talk about that, when it comes time to decide.
I'll talk to the
all
higher
those
ups.
things. Yeah. So anyways, the story is about Chipotle. They are hiring 19,000 workers for their they're looking to hire 19,000 workers for their busiest time of the year, which is March to May. I guess Alicia will explain why that's their busiest time of the year, because Lord knows I don't know. And so this is a new way to target Gen Z, who is currently 73% of the workforce. So they are offering several things for student loan relief, financial literacy. There are ways to partner with SoFi, and they have all these things that they're doing, and it's very interesting and really involved. And they're offering like classes on how to learn how to do your finances, and it's a really comprehensive system. But another thing Alicia pointed out is that they're also doing these mental health measures that they're adding. And as we've heard a lot, Gen Z is very keen on mental health. It's a very important feature to them. And they want to work for companies that offer more of a lifestyle. And adding mental health perks is this lifestyle choice and this lifestyle added value. And so it makes the job really appealing to Gen Z or borderline Gen Z like me. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think about what this means for Chipotle that it's offering this, and do you think others will have to respond to it? Alicia's done. She's over it.
Well, I mentioned this on First Bite. I'll talk about the evolution of the restaurant industry workforce until the cows are literally home. It is the biggest pro that came out of COVID. That was such a crappy time, but we have the opportunity now to really rethink how we approach our workforce. And we have struggled so undeniably with that in the past. But then when we became, when our workers became essential, and then we went through 21 and 22 where we had all-time high quit rates and we couldn't staff our restaurants to even open on certain days. This is when the conversation became very real. And what's interesting to me about the timing of this Chipotle release, and Chipotle's always had a tremendous amount of benefits. I think it's important to make sure that is very clear. They've always had, education assistance and mental health benefits before. They offer bonuses for recruitment and things along those lines that probably are better than most companies. They're company owned. It's probably easier for them to execute against these things. What was really interesting to me about these new benefits is they are directly targeting the challenges that, besiege Gen Z the most, because like you mentioned, Holly, they're 3/4 of their workers. And they're struggling. They can't buy houses because they're, up to their nose in debt. It's off the table for them, let alone saving for retirement. I mean, I don't know many Gen Z people who are having the conversation about saving for retirement, and they should be at that age, And so I think that's a very sexy benefit is, okay, we're going to match your 401k if you pay off your student loans. And it's kind of like a 2-for-1 benefit in my opinion, that they're enticing these workers through that 401k hook. I also want to make a point that, several executives that I've spoken to in the past several months, including just last week at the ICR conference with Christine Barone, who's the CEO of Dutch Bros. All of them are pushing this point now that recruitment and retention is not just about higher wages anymore. This generation has changed that conversation. COVID compounded that change, accelerated that change. Sure, higher pay is, a necessity. We haven't updated our federal minimum wage since like 2009. But they want these wellness benefits. They want flexibility. They want a great working environment. They want people who understand that they should be paying off their student loans responsibly and simultaneously saving for their 401k and not having to come up with that either or decision because they're up to their nose in debt. And I think this is going to change, or maybe continue to accelerate that conversation, and that excites me because I'm sick of this industry being transient. The turnover rates, it needs to be a respectable industry. We have to match the benefits, and incentives to do that. And I think this is a good start.
Well, Alicia, you're basically describing me when you talk. I am about to be 30, listeners, so be prepared for that fear. I just started adding to my 401k in December, and I have been here for 6 years. So it's a real thing, and I've seen a dip in my pay. It's a real thing to be able to find the money to do that, especially when you're working in a fast food, fast casual, quick service environment. Like, you're working hourly. You're not, so like, it's a big deal to be able to have that extra money to, take out $100 out of your paycheck. That could be life-changing money for somebody, that $100. It could be their meals for the month. It could be, so, I mean, I totally agree that it's something that we have to work to get to a place where it's not a choice. It's something that
No,
they can afford to do.
no doubt. And I think one other point that I think it's worth making is, not only we left money on the table because we didn't have staffing for hours or days, but turnover is expensive. And the costs of turnover, training, ramping up everybody, onboarding, all that stuff far exceeds wage inflation, and some of these benefits. I bet if we put that down on a sheet, we would be able to be like, okay, this is far more cost effective to offer some benefits like this than it is to spend $1,200 every time somebody leaves. And people in this industry leave a lot. And I think that's going to continue to be a challenge just because of the nature of the work. It's hard. But I think that, we have to start figuring out how to make it less of a challenge. And again, that became much more clear of a priority throughout the past several years.
Yeah, and to that end, I mean, a lot of the conversations I've been having with restaurant leaders, I'm sure it's the same for the two of you. So much it comes up now around showing young people on your team that they have a career trajectory, that they have potential to rise the ranks, that they have potential to be leaders, to be managers, to be owners, that you can in the restaurant industry become a millionaire. And, that is an important part of all this because the employers like a Chipotle that aren't just paying better, but are saying, we also are paying attention to you. We're also, providing for your 401k. That's a long-term thing. We're paying attention to the fact that you have student loan debt. We see you. We understand mental health awareness. When you do that to a team member, they see an employer who cares and who is investing in you, not just, I need cheap labor. And obviously, so often the restaurant industry has been that. I need cheap labor. Here's a young person willing to work for cheap. Go. So if you yes, pay better, but more importantly, invest in that young person, then you build trust, you build a relationship. They're more likely to stick around. And to Alicia's point, turnover is expensive, but also consider the long-term benefits of somebody who's been with your company 5-10 years, the institutional knowledge that they have, their ability to do the job well, the pipeline of leadership you're building. I would call out, I recently spoke to Farah Scott, the CEO of Trapper Sushi Company out of Washington State. And here's this incredible story of a young woman who started as a server at the sushi company and is now the CEO. Now that's abnormal, of course, but now she and the founder, Trapper O'Keefe, are building out this development program that demonstrates to all frontline employees, here's what you could do. And they have this great program where they're going to grow through employee ownership. So it's technically like a franchise model, but the owners are employees that they've identified as strong leaders. And so, again, all of that ends up being a very long-term play. But 5, 10, 20 years from now, the health of your organization depends on the talent that you're building in the pipeline now. And so it takes more than better pay to secure that trust from those employees, to secure that relationship. There's just so much more that goes into it. And that's why I think Chipotle, this is such a smart move for them to do. Just because, again, it's a bet on their future, which, I mean, Chipotle's future is bright no matter what. But like, as far as profitability, as far as leadership, as far as being, tops and all kinds of things like hospitality, service, all those things, this is the bet that they place now.
Well, we wrote about managers and for our power list in 2023. I was about to say this year, it's last year now. And our cover was a Chipotle regional manager because she had been there for 5 years. She had worked her way up the ranks. So Chipotle does have a history of helping promote from within, and we spoke with her and she was talking about that. So, I mean, I think it's important to note that they are doing this, but now they're adding all these extra benefits to really help these workers who enter want to grow with the company. And that's the restaurant industry's biggest problem, is that people don't see a future.
Well, and Chipotle and Alicia might know better than I do, but Chipotle was actually one of the first to codify, so to speak, this restaurant partner idea. They had this incredible restaurant partner program when Monty Moran was the co-CEO along with Steve Ells. And I highly recommend Monty Moran's book. I'm gonna try for the title. I think it's Love is Free, Guac is Extra. He spoke at Create a few years ago. I read the book. It's a fantastic book, but he talks about that program, and that whole premise of that book was, that you invest in your people and you show them the trajectory they have in front of them, and that eventually they were naming strong leaders as restaurant partners. And I mean, Chipotle was the toast of the town.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia would know better than I if that program has been maintained. But what I can tell you is, regardless, they set a model. I can't tell you how many operators I've spoken to are like, oh, well, we copied the Chipotle model. Like, we wanted to do it like Chipotle. And even similar to the Trappers example I was giving, kind of a similar idea. Raising Cane's, I know, does this. Which is all to say, like, Chipotle has been doing this for a long time. I think this part of it is, a little bit more part of the new regime and some of their efforts, but the proof's in the pudding. I mean, look at Chipotle and the money that the profitability, the growth potential. It's all there. And this is why.
Yeah, it does seem like operating partner programs are becoming far more common. In fact, that was one of the first things that GJ Hart implemented when he came on board at Red Robin. And it's been a tremendous success so far. And I think that's, again, I think I get really excited because it seems like the conversation has not only changed, but is maybe accelerating. And, to your point, Sam, Chipotle says that nearly 90% of its current restaurant leadership started as crew members. So when you say proof is in the pudding, I assume they're not lying about those numbers.
Pretty amazing.
It's pretty impressive. So
now, Alicia, we're about to lose you. So I wanted to just get your top line thoughts about America's favorite chains. And then I'll dive deeper into it with Sam.
Losing me.
Well, anyway, Alicia, this is a really awkward way to tell you, but
what am I done? Is this how I know? What were you asking? I was distracted. That was really distracting, you guys. I feel like I'm just getting started.
I want to know, you wrote a great feature on America's favorite chains, comparing the Dutch Bros and
Rise.
So can you just tell me some of the top line things that you thought about, some of the biggest chains that came out with this kind of weird numbers?
They were weird, weren't they? It was really interesting. I was swimming in that data for days. It was so fun to swim around in that data because it was pretty comprehensive. I mean, this Technomic data was looking at everything from guests, from speed to cleanliness and everything in between. So, it's a pretty holistic view that was taken when we talk about America's favorite brands. It's not necessarily about frequency, right? It's about those attributes that consumers identify as being really strong. And I had the opportunity to dive into two in particular on really opposite sides of the spectrum in the industry, and Ruth's Chris, and then Dutch Bros, and Steak and Coffee. I think I pointed this out in my story that we are a nation of steak eaters and coffee lovers. I don't have those statistics, but they were pretty. I mean, they're hot. Most people drink coffee and most people eat steak. So I think the takeaway then, if you parse out those two brands specifically, and I know my colleague Joanna looked a little bit more deeply at the categories like smoothies and stuff. But if you parse those two, categories out specifically, all we've heard about for the past several months is consumers are softening. And we've seen this, to an extent with traffic levels that are declining. But I truly believe, and I think that history supports this, that American consumers are going to justify certain spending allowances. And those include daily indulgences, and they include, like coffee or afternoon pick-me-ups, like a Dutch Bros, and special occasions. And that's Ruth's Chris. So, we saw special occasion dining tick up pretty significantly last year. I argue that there's still significant pent-up demand because 2 years is too long for the American consumer not to have consistent access to restaurants. Younger consumers have proven that they prefer restaurants over food at home. And so, both of those chains have those things in common where they, support the two things that we will allot our discretionary spending for. If you drill deeper into those two brands, Ruth's Chris is now under the umbrella of Darden, and I think that is going to be a really good thing. At ICR, several people mentioned how efficient Darden is. They don't discount. They're not value players. They're so unique. They've got just these tremendous stories right now, anomalous stories in Olive Garden, and Longhorn Steakhouse. So I think they execute really well. They prefer to overstaff. They, avoid, like I said, avoid discounting. And I think that is really starting to yield significant results for Darden. I don't see a reason for that to change as Ruth's Chris continues to integrate into that company. Dutch Bros is just a story on its own. I mean, it's growing tremendously in a wildly growing category. It's been around for 30 years. I think that always surprises me because some of these competitive peers of them, are newer. But look, they've got, an efficient footprint. I think it's like 700. Their box is small. Efficient labor line. Beverages are just huge profit margin generators. And like I said, I spoke with Christine Barone at ICR, the new CEO of Dutch Bros, and they've got they really hang their hat on their culture. And I think that's pretty, I don't know. I don't work there. I don't really know anybody who works there, but I can tell you that they have been in several similar surveys and reports as the one that we reported on about high customer service scores. And that starts with the staff. And so that's gonna generate frequency and excitement and all of it. And I again, steak and coffee. It's what we like. We're gluttonous. And I think that the one thing I'll kind of say and then move into my hard stop that is now past. This beverage segment is so fun to cover, and it's because of the more efficient box. It's because of the different labor line. It's not as complex as a burger joint. We have proven that we don't eat in tidy little day parts anymore. The pandemic just came and turned that on its head. I work from home. Sometimes I need to get out of this house. And so 3:00 to the Dutch Bros there's no Dutch Bros in Louisville yet, but to the Starbucks up the street, of course, it's really enticing. And so I just think this beverage category is really, really fun to follow. And Dutch Bros is one of the leaders, and I think will continue to be because of that. Because of that focus that it puts on its culture and customer service. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, one of the interesting things that, Ron Ruggles brought up with all of us was that there are so many Darden brands on this list.
Yeah.
It's really run by Darden brands. And that includes, we have one specific group dedicated to Gen Z's favorite brands. We have a specific group dedicated to millennials' favorite brands. And Darden comes up in those, as well as the highest ranked brands in total. So they're appealing to these younger generations, these Darden brands that, when I think of Darden, I think it's an older customer, and it's proving that it's certainly not. These results are saying this customer is every age group, it's every financial walk of life, it's everything. These are universally loved.
Alicia, I release you. I can talk about this too. You have a soft definition of a hard stop.
I do.
Feel free to
I'll just leave it. Like again, Rick Cardenas and the Darden team spoke at ICR, and several people commented on their approach and how it's different. And investors are turning their heads. It continues to outperform the industry, and I think that the next earnings call is going to show. I think it's going to show more of what we're already talking about. So, all right, y'all. I'm out. And enjoy your day. And Sam, you missed it, so go blue.
Oh boy. Goodbye. Get out of here.
Happy clothes drying.
Hey, thanks. Goodbye.
I did see a story online about a woman who accidentally put her cat into the dryer.
Wow. Well, that's a segue. And what happened to the cat, Holly?
It did not make it.
Yeah, because that's not where cats belong. Jeez Louise, people, if you thought to yourself, oh, I'm going to dry my cat in the dryer, you got another thing that you got to deal with. Okay. Yeah, my thoughts on America's favorite chains, though. I mean, yeah, like Darden, clearly, it did surprise me. 5 brands on the top 10. I mean, that just is truly, truly impressive. Now, Alicia was kind of getting to this, and just to reemphasize, it just so aligns with customer lifestyles and need states, which is why she says steak and coffee. I say steak and smoothie, because one thing that Alicia did not mention, the top 10 has 2 smoothie chains. So Dutch Bros is up there. Dutch Bros is number 3 on the top 10 after Ruth's Chris in season 52. But coming in at number 8 is Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and number 10 is Smoothie King. So even though, yes, there is a coffee brand on here, there's 2 smoothie chains. And so we could lump Dutch Bros and the smoothie chains into kind of one sort of beverage snack category, you could say. And to say, smoothies and steak, like why those 2?
Hopefully not together.
Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe after this list, maybe they belong together. Maybe this is a missed opportunity. Next thing we're going to see Ruth's Chris with a specialty smoothie line. But, as Alicia said, of course, we love our steak and we love our smoothies and coffee. But I think more importantly here is to just emphasize the alignment with the lifestyle of the customer and their experiences and their memories. That was the first takeaway. I think maybe perhaps the most obvious from America's favorite chains is around the fact that there are a lot of steakhouses on here because people, by and large, don't go there very often. And they're usually going there for a special occasion. So an anniversary, a birthday, a celebration of some kind. This is not a weekly thing that you go to Ruth's Chris. Maybe there's some out there, but by and large, you're probably going there maybe at most quarterly. And so the point is that alignment with this very special memory, this very special occasion, of course, people are going to have fond memories of that. And the same thing goes for the smoothies and coffee. And that's not the memory part of it, but it's the lifestyle part of it, which is I'm on my way to work and that's my spot I swing into for my daily coffee or my daily smoothie. And so for me, one of those takeaways from all of this data is, how do you align with those moments for customers? And you might be a burgers and fries joint and you're not going to play in either side. You're not playing on the daily, sort of lifestyle aspect, and you're not playing on the special occasion, but you could find ways to, again, align with customer experiences and customer good vibes. Because if you participate in the good vibes beyond the quality of your food, beyond the convenience and value of your food, but by creating a very special moment for them, they will reward you. They'll give back with their loyalty and by rating the brands, your brand, very high on a list such as this. And so that's my first takeaway. If I sort of started to break down some of the other results, I mean, one of the things I think you immediately will notice is not a lot of major chains on this list. You were one to point that out, Holly. You said no top 10 chains outside of Chick-fil-A. The only list Chick-fil-A made it onto, I believe, was the chicken list. So favorite chicken chains, it was number 1, of course. But other than that, you're seeing a lot of mid-scale chains here. So you're seeing Culver's, You're seeing In-N-Out and Freddy's in the burger category. You're seeing Raising Cane's, First Watch, Carrabba's, Maggiano's, all relatively household names, certainly in the regions where they play. But you're not seeing McDonald's. You're not seeing Starbucks. I don't know what to make of that outside to say the opportunity is there, even if you are playing in a category where there is a major titan of restaurants in that category. Doesn't matter. Like, you might be a burger player and, worried about losing business to McDonald's, but people don't go to your brand for the same reason they go to McDonald's, possibly. So, so that was a lesson I pulled from this. And the last thing I'd say is the difference in millennial and Gen Z favorites, I think, is kind of interesting. Just because, I mean, as an older millennial, I tend to just assume I'm young, but know that I'm inherently know that I'm old.
You are old. You're a grumpy old man.
I'm a grumpy old man now. And, but like when I think of Gen Z, I don't think that there's that much difference. But sure enough, if you look at some of these lists, it's just really fascinating to see the difference. And so like one I would point out is like Sweetgreen. And this rang so true for me. Sweetgreen is the fourth most favorite limited service restaurant for millennials. And Sweetgreen does not show up on a Gen Z list. And I think that resonated for me because, again, Sweetgreen feels very of my generation. It was, it's been around 16, 17 years. And this is not to speak ill of the Sweetgreen necessarily, but is it not resonating with the younger customers? I mean, it's definitely not a value play. Sweetgreen's not cheap. So that was really something interesting to look at. And you made the point, like Darden still shows up on every list. So that's impressive. I'm not going to belabor this too much, and really just say, go to nrn.com and get all the results. But it's, there are particular learnings you can take from this. As we speak, I'm getting ready to go live on LinkedIn with Robert Byrne from Technomic, our partner on the report. That video will make available online as well. So I highly recommend you go check that out because we'll be talking about all these same things. And he's a lot smarter than I am about all this stuff.
No.
But like, it's easy to get sort of lost in sort of the clickbait weeds of something like this and say, oh, well, whatever. People, customers, well, they don't know what they're talking about. But there's real practical insight to pull from a list like this. And so I highly recommend you go review the results, look at what the generations care about, look at what is tops by service category. I think, the only one that didn't surprise me was when you look at it by menu category. That one to me is like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Other than that, there's just a lot of really interesting, surprising tidbits. So that's what I got for you.
I think that the generational difference, like, I know millennials can be much older. Like you're on the older side, I'm on the younger side. So like I know that the spread between millennial is big, and so is the spread between Gen Z, but they're going around like 28 to like 18. So some of these things I was super surprised by. I mean, we know that I don't know a lot of brands or have not experienced them in person. So, forgive that, listeners. But like Seasons 52, I thought was such an odd thing for Gen Z's top full service chain. Like that was mind boggling to me that this was. And another thing that shows up is the Brass Tap, which I wrote a profile on for our website, nrn.com. But they don't have that many locations, and they're number 10 on Gen Z's full service list. That's a brand with like 50 locations. That's pretty wild that they were able to make the list. And they are definitely a lifestyle brand. I mean, that's kind of what we're covering, but it was so weird to me. But like in the limited service, Torchy's Tacos, like that makes perfect sense to me. Like I was just like, yep, that sounds right. But some of them, like Nukes, I didn't think that Nukes would be on the list. And I think there's just a lot of things that I had to stop and say, huh, I would have never guessed that. And we cover this industry every single day. And that's weird.
And going back to that sort of comment I made about the mid-market, you're also seeing a lot of regional chains. And so I think what I would pull from that observation is that I think customers by and large, and particularly the younger generations, or at least Gen Z and millennials, I think they prefer business with what might be perceived as not a national chain, right? Because Nukes is a good example. Nukes is primarily in the Southeast. And if you go to a Nukes, which when I lived in the Southeast, I went to Nukes, it's great. And, but it sort of, it rings very true of a Southeast community. It just feels like it's of that community, right? And that's what people want, right? Like they want to feel like this could be just as well a local one-off restaurant as it is a chain. And that's what I see a lot of in these restaurants that show up here, particularly for the millennials and the Gen Z. So look, if you have 10,000 locations already, there's nothing you can do to reverse that and go regional and not national. But you should carry yourself individually at the unit level like you're a local restaurant. Because, I mean, and that's what everybody means when they talk about authenticity. Authenticity of the concept and of your workforce and of the experience you're providing. Even if you have 10,000 locations, you can create that at the unit level. And so I think that seems to be what resonates with guests. And there's ways that you can use that to your advantage.
I mean, Alicia was talking about earlier, take Dutch Bros as an example. They're broistas. Dutch Bros wants to have 4,000 units in the next several years. They're on their way there, but they have a distinct feel that people love, and they're at the top of every list. They're Gen Z's favorite limited service brand. So, I mean, definitely go. I will link everything in our show notes, but go check out that report. It's really great. Has a lot of great information. I'll also link the LinkedIn Live that we do. So you can check all of that out. I'm sure you guys already peruse our website daily and are checking our homepage at all times. But in case you're not, I will give you every link. And please go check it out. It's a super, super interesting report. And you'll be like, huh, a lot.
Indeed. Huh.
All right. So, huh. Okay, so I'm going to throw it over to this week's interview, which is the new CEO of Bonchon, Susie Tsai. And she talked to Joanna Fantozzi. So that interview is going to come up next. Very cool. She talked to her like the day before they announced the CEO. So it's a very fun interview with a lot of really great tidbits and some surprises. So enjoy that. But I'm going to thank you, Sam, and Alicia, who's already gone, for joining me.
Thanks, Holly.
Congratulations on your new role as CEO of Bonchon. Susie, could you tell me a bit about your background and how you got to the brand?
Of course. Hi, I'm Susie Tsai, CEO of Bonchon US. I've been with the brand since last August, and I'm super excited to be here. I started my restaurant career back at Brinker International, which is a Grand Bar. And luckily at Brinker, when you're working there, you get to work on various brands. So I got to work on Chili's, On the Border, Maggiano's, Macaroni Grill, Corner Bakery as a big portfolio company. Spent my time there, 17 years, worked on those brands, mainly for Chili's Bar and Grill, and worked on various businesses, started in consumer insights and led to marketing and global marketing as well. So worked a lot with international franchising and as well as domestic franchising. And it was a great experience that I had over those years. I had a little bit of also background in media. I worked for the Dallas Morning News. Coming out of college, as well as Verizon. And I studied economics and poli-sci as my undergrad, and then international management for my grad school. So all of those, interestingly, the studies that I've done have applied really well in my career, in my business. But really the restaurant piece of it was what really drew me. And that's why I worked at Brinker for such a long time. It was really at Brinker, we called it, we didn't call it restaurant business. We called it people business. And that's ultimately what it is. And same thing here at Bonchon, is all about people. It's all about connecting people, bringing great food to people. And it's been awesome to be here.
Amazing. And so I love the kind of the kind of diverse background of kind of getting to work with all those different Brinker brands. Kind of a different leap, different types of companies for sure between Brinker and Bonchon, a bit smaller. But I'm just curious, why were you drawn to Bonchon?
When I first found out the opportunity at Bonchon, it really drew me because number one, food is awesome. So I would never work for a restaurant company that does not have great food. And at Bonchon, the fried chicken is awesome. The sauces are awesome. So that was number one reason what really drew me. Secondly, the fact that it's Korean and I'm Korean, and it's something that I'm very proud of. And it's it's great to be able to be a Korean American representing a Korean American company in the States. I talked about the careers I had in the restaurant in the industry, and they're, very mainstream American brands that I work for. And I never thought that I would ever work for a Korean company. And this was my opportunity to, as a Korean American, to, really bring back, all the things that I can bring to the table as a Korean American to a company that I can lead, and a brand that I can be very proud of, that I can be myself and be very authentic at. And just the fact that beyond my business expertise, that I can bring somebody who I am and my sort of the gut and the way I feel about, being a Korean American to the company, to the brand, was something that really drew me to it.
I absolutely love that you mentioned that, because I agree. I think that it's so important to kind of have that expertise and background as a Korean American yourself. And also in the fact of that in general in this restaurant business, I kind of feel like it's a little homogenous in leadership. And so, I mean, don't get too many women of color CEOs, and that's amazing. And I guess, like, how important is it to you to kind of be in that kind of trailblazing position, not to put any pressure on you, but kind of in being that trailblazing position within the restaurant industry?
And, it's a little scary, right? In this position, I have to make a lot of decisions fast and all day. And ultimately, the decisions that I'm making along with our franchisees. And they're also a very diverse group of people. And a lot of them are Korean Americans and Asian Americans. And my parents are just like them. So I have tremendous empathy for our franchise group, and being able to be a leader who can, support them for them to run a successful day-to-day business has been very rewarding. And ultimately, I think that sort of the passion, the conviction I have for their success makes me be very honest in the decisions that I make on their behalf. And it's been a great ride. But just having, being in this role and being a woman, I'm a mom all day. I have 3 little kids, and it just, it's such a balancing act from that standpoint. So nothing is, I don't make any decisions lightly. Everything is very much, well thought out on sort of, making sure that everything is a winning decision for our guests and our franchisees, and just staying true to that, I think, has been my way of, navigating this role, and trying to lead a growing brand, and is accelerating, faster than ever. And just, meeting with our franchisees every day, they encourage me, they motivate me, and it's been really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are brand new, right? So when was your first day?
My first day was August 15th.
Okay. As I thought that was when you were chief growth officer. No?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
My first day as CEO was October 1st.
Okay, awesome.
Happened fast.
You went up the pipeline really fast, I have to say. So what is the secret to going up the ladder of success so quickly?
I came into the organization not so much, I didn't think so much about my title or the area of the, business coverage that I needed to really go about. I looked at the business as a whole, and everything as an opportunity. So when I was talking to, obviously, our board of the company, my bosses, right, ultimately, that are vested in the company, I told them sort of what I saw, and what I thought were the biggest opportunities, and where we were lacking, and where we needed to really fine tune. And they saw that as an opportunity for me to, take the leadership role, to kind of run with it. So I think for anyone who's, who hasn't been sort of in that challenge of a role, as you're taking on a new role, and is taking on a new career, I think that's something that you should really think about, is that not just think, worry about kind of your, your scope of work, but really understand the entire business and see the other opportunities, because there's so much collaboration, integration that's happening in the business world these days, just because you come in with, one sort of a mindset or expertise doesn't mean that you can't challenge, yourself in other areas of business. And that's basically what I did. So I looked at our performance, I looked at our sales, I looked at how our franchisees are operating, I looked at our menu, I looked at all of the channels that we're going into, and saw a lot of ways that we can do things differently and better. And I really just spoke up. Because really at this point, if there was nothing to sort of hide about what I uncovered, and I wasn't shy about it, and I really wanted, this business to get better and really maximize all the opportunities that it has. So that, I think, got everyone really here excited, and gave me the opportunity to lead.
So what are some of that you mentioned you found some things that you would want to do differently. So what are some of those things, and and that maybe you've been working on for the past few months?
Yep. So that really leads into our, the key areas of the business that we're going to be working on in 2024. One is, I know everybody in the restaurant industry is talking about technology, and it's constantly evolving and changing, and getting better. And that's something that we need to definitely keep up with. We have a great, baseline today, and we went through a quick transformation during COVID because we didn't have the technology in place. So what we, started with back, during the pandemic is not necessarily for the future for us. So we're going to, build our future stack in technology and make all the things on where, no matter where our guests are, whether they're in the restaurant, out the restaurant, at home, I want to make it, super seamless and easy for them to navigate our menu and get banchan in, to wherever they are. So that's been number one task for us. And our stores, are also asking for it. From a labor standpoint, I think technology could be something that really brings, relief to certain labor models. So we're working on that technology piece from both, B2B side and also in the B2C side. The second piece is supply chain. As we've been growing, we've really needed a great national supply chain in place, and we've been working towards it. So we are rolling a national supply chain system in process for our franchisees in 2024 and in Q2. So that's really exciting for us, and that will give us tremendous leverage to even grow faster and run our business more effectively. And then third is just all of these other opportunities that we haven't really seeked out. One of them being, catering. So, so our Korean food, naturally has a way to, gather people, and is super shareable. And I don't know that anybody in the Korean food category has really tapped into it. And we already have a great catering business and menu. So I see tremendous opportunity for us to grow incrementally in that catering business and bring that Korean party to wherever your business, your home, wherever you're gathering.
Definitely a couple things to touch upon there. You're definitely speaking my language when it comes to technology as the tech reporter for NRN. So I guess what do you think is like the top of your list for tech changes? You mentioned a couple of things.
On the technology piece, is that what you're asking? Yeah, I think it's, it all has to do with obviously the online ordering component of it.
Mhm.
Our menu is not that complicated. However, knowing our menu could be complicated and not, maybe hard for someone to approach, right? So for us, having that very easy to navigate menu online is super critical because, one, you have to understand the food to try and figure out what you need to do. And we can do better at suggestive selling, we can do better at educating, we can do better about explaining, and sort of what makes a great Korean meal is how I want this online menu to be. So today it's very tactical in a way that it's about how you order chicken wings, or it's about how you order entrees, and kind of the typical standard. But I think we can make it even more engaging and fun, and have people really have a great experience no matter how, whether they know our food or not, and make it super easy for them.
Okay, so kind of like an intuitive digital experience.
That's right.
Okay, and would that be just for like the website or for app or?
Definitely our Trek channel is our number one goal. So banchan.com and having a great menu experience there. But even in restaurant, a lot of our guests are, using us, via kiosk or just from their phone, right? So making sure that all of those devices, no matter what platform you're on, that we are ready and we're providing that same great, like you said, engaging, intuitive menu experience.
And you also mentioned supply chain. I'm actually curious, are any of the ingredients imported from Korea? Is there any challenge with that or?
Um, our sauces are proprietary, so that is a huge, um, tool for us and it can be challenging. We found a partner who manufactures the sauce for us in the States. So since the pandemic, it's been very challenging to import the sauce from Korea. So we found a way to bring the sauce here, and we're making the sauces here. That allows us to also innovate on the sauces. So, which we had not tapped into. We're known for soy, garlic, and spicy. And this year we've introduced, just in 2023, we introduced a new yang yam sauce as well as K barbecue. So we're going to be doing more of the seasonal sauce plays and bring that innovation. And with that said, that this national supply chain process is hugely important because we want to be able to provide that consistency of products everywhere. The other thing is because we're a Korean restaurant, we have a lot of unique Asian ingredients that we need to source, and we need to be able to um, uh, you know, have consistency everywhere from a quality standpoint. So then, that's another value that we'll be able to add with the national system to have that right quality products of these, sometimes hard to source items that are uniquely Korean, uniquely Asian, that are all of our restaurants need to get.
Mhm. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the Bonchan's expansion, and development. The brand has been expanding fairly rapidly recently. Could you tell me a bit about the growth momentum in store for 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, in 2024, we're looking at 40 stores that are currently in the pipeline that we already have, ready to build dates, right? So, and that's pretty aggressive for a company like us. But it's also very important. We're also going into 3 new countries in 2024, and global, expansion is also rapidly growing. It's interesting. The global business is a little bit different. It's master franchising business. So each of the franchisees have their own country that they're operating. Like France is its own operator that's going to be expanding, and Philippines and Singapore and so on. In the U.S., we are working with smaller franchise groups. So there are a lot of them are, family-owned franchisees, and going back to, 20 years when we started. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic, but the most important, piece to it is our current franchisees that who already are passionate and love our brand, and growing with them and making it easy for them to grow together. So that's been our focus, and just making sure that we have a really tight community and relationship with our franchisees to make sure that we have that support structure in place to not only make sure that they have a successful model today to run their current business, but also to grow into the new business. So from site selection to designing and building out the restaurant, and then having great openings and making sure that they have great way to run their business day to day has been something that we're working on. So that's been that's always hard to do. You can certainly grow just by opening net units, but making sure that we're trying to make sure that every opening is a quality opening and every location can deliver on the expected sales.
Mhm. And you mentioned how important it is to have such a good relationship with your franchisees. And I'm curious, is Bonchan mostly franchised in the US?
That's right. Yes, we are about 95% franchise.
Okay, great. And so I guess how do you attract franchisees and develop your relationship with franchisees in the long term?
Yeah, it's been a learning process for me, and at a company like Brinker, that was also like a master of franchising where we had larger franchise groups that we were dealing with, and internationally country by country that we work with much larger hospitality groups that ran those countries. Here in the US with Banchan, they're mostly family owned, and that's where I make the most of my connection. I think I mentioned earlier, my parents were, immigrants here, and they own their own businesses. And my brother and I, worked at our parents' businesses, was convenience stores, restaurants, and all through college, high school, college, we worked there. So I have tremendous empathy for our franchisees who are going through basically the same life experience as I did as I was growing up. And now that I'm a grown up and I'm in this role that, and I realize how important it is, because for them it's their livelihood, right? And for us as a brand, as a restaurant, that that we can easily look at as a system. But when you talk to everyone, one of them, they have different reasons, their own passions, and how they want to run their business and how they operate. So it's been a one-on-one relationship building. It's a lot of a lot of conversations, a lot of learning about who they are. It really helps me when I know where they come from and what their values are and passions are, and why they do the things that they do at their banchan. And but ultimately, they love banchan, they love the food, they love the quality, and I respect so much of what they do every day, because they will not sacrifice on food quality and food flavor and execution. And everything else becomes very easy for me to then help them on, whether it's marketing, whether it's helping them drive traffic, helping them with their supply chain or technology. These are all of the things that I can bring to the table to make their business run much smoother and easier and continue to grow. But what they do on making great food every day and providing great hospitality has been great. So just meeting everybody's been so interesting. They come from all kinds of different backgrounds. We have a lot of young franchisees that come from kind of the business world, and they run a very different model themselves. So it's been a great process understanding how some of them sort of run their businesses, and there's been a great sharing of information. So our franchisees are also in a way that they're a very tight-knit group, and they share a lot of the sort of learnings and best in class type of things that they've seen in the banchan world. And it's been a great way to continue to build that on.
Okay, great. I think that's a great note to end on. It's awesome that you have that franchising experience yourself and can kind of what it's been like to be in the trenches.
Thank you.
All right. Well, great. Thank you so much, Susie, for being here, for talking to us. And we're very excited to see what's in store for Banchan in 2024 and beyond.
Thank you so much.